Hey guys, welcome to Jack's Treasures to what? Not another reselling podcast. Today, I have a super guest star on our podcast. He is a man that has influenced a lot of people on the platform, including me. Who you got to remember now? I've been a reseller for 18 years. Didn't think I could learn more. I watch his shows, and every time I watch some of his community shows on Sunday, I learn something every single day that I get to take into my business. Our podcast is focused on live reselling, and we are going out raw. So whatever is said on the podcast is is going to be put out on when we release the podcast. Tracy is normally with me today, but Tracy's not feeling well, so she's taking a break for today. But my guest is Jermey from GreenThirteen. Jermey, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Jermey from GreenThirteen. Not too much else to say. So hopefully your wife feels better soon, by the way. But
thank you.
I mean,
and he's modest.
What's that?
And he's very modest.
Yeah. It's if you want me to tell you a little bit about myself, it's not too much, or GreenThirteen in general. I mean, we buy and sell stuff. I mean, there's not too much to say beyond that. Obviously, when we get into the fun little chat here about the live selling attributes, we've been through the whole gamut. Probably like you. You said you were on for like 18 years. We've been doing sales now for like 14 years, and we've hit every single thing across the board as far as platforms to sell on. So that gives you a quick down and dirty, above from the top down of what we do here at GreenThirteen, what we've been through over the last 14 years. I mean, every platform. And I will just say at the moment, my favorite platform that I've ever sold on right now is currently Whatnot, the live selling aspect. So, that's where we're at right now in our business.
He's being a little bit on the modest side and stuff like that. When I was introduced to GreenThirteen, I was introduced to GreenThirteen via Paul, the Philly Flipper. And Paul was in your show. And at that time, you used to be able to see where your friends were. So if you were like friends with somebody or following somebody, you could click on their activity and you could see, Paul the Philly Flipper is watching GreenThirteen. So I went into the show, and this is the introduction that I got from Paul. He said, "Brian, you are in the presence of a legend." Okay. And I was like, a legend. Oh, okay. I got to check this out. So I watched his show and started to learn a lot about him as a reseller. Okay. And I was fascinated by the fact that he approaches reselling a different way than most people do, which most people are concentrating on how they can sell and what they can sell. Jermey, he concentrates on what people are buying and how people are buying and adapting that to how he does his business. And so I became a religious follower of his Sunday shows, even though he does his shows at 8:00 in the morning on a Sunday. And I hate getting up at 8:00 in the morning on Sunday, but I try to do my very, very best. But he's also being very modest. He's got, I think, 35,000 followers right now.
We do. And I'll take a little bit of the modestness out. Like, we have 30-some thousand followers, but if we talk about some of my ways of selling on Whatnot here, when you start asking me some questions, if I did things the way normal people do, my following numbers would be probably triple or 3 times that. And we'll probably, I'm sure, be talking about that a little bit later in reference to like the giveaway aspect. And I think what you're, probably alluding to a little more there with the being modest. I didn't go into, at the beginning here, I was saving it for questions with the behavioral science and psychology behind what I do to influence my sales. I'm guessing that's what you're alluding to there as far as the Sunday morning.
Oh yeah, we are going to be talking about that, but I wanted to give him more of a little build up and stuff like that, guys. And believe me, you're going to learn a lot from him, and hopefully you'll learn a lot from this podcast with Jermey on it. Go ahead, Jermey.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you'll learn too. I don't focus on followers. You mentioned followers.
Yes.
I focus on sales. My
Right.
whole philosophy is, I focus on where the money is. Wherever you focus is where things improve. So sales are what's important to me. I think we're rolling around we're, in no time, if we didn't hit it already, we'll be at that 150,000 item mark on Whatnot with items sold.
Unbelievable.
And that
Yeah.
will increase exponentially as this year goes on and years to come, hopefully. So
Yeah. Oh,
there's
yeah.
that a
There's
little less
absolutely
modest
zero
for you.
Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate it. I do got to tell this little brief story. When I was in the chat, I very politely asked Jeremy if he would ever consider evaluating another seller's Whatnot show. And I specifically was very much interested in him evaluating mine, which I knew that one, he was going to tear my show apart because a lot of the stuff that he talks about, I was doing the opposite of that. And I will let you know that in his chat shows, he always says, this is what works for my show. Okay. This is what works for me. You can take it and adapt it to yours or do whatever that you want to do with it. But I'm just telling you, this is what works for me. So he says, he goes, well, I've never really considered it, but would anybody else in the chat like to do that? And I mean, the chat blew up with everybody wanting him to do these. But he says, well, I'm going to do Jack's Treasures first. Now, I knew that Jeremy is busy. He very, very busy. And we'll talk about that. But he had me on as a guest on his podcast, or not podcast, on his Whatnot show on a Sunday morning. And the first question he asked me completely threw me for a loop. Completely threw me for a loop.
I'm curious.
He knew it.
I don't remember.
Yeah. His first question to me is what is your business plan? That was his first question to me. He goes, before I evaluate, I need to know what is your plan for your business? And it got me to think, and I've been like, I've been a reseller for 18 years on all of the platforms. Also, I've been on Whatnot for, I'm coming up on 3 years myself. And I never had a plan. I didn't have a plan for my business. And it threw me so hard because it was like 18 years of me doing this and I don't even have a plan. A lot of that I was teaching at the time. So it caught me off of guard and I was like, oh my gosh, I got to develop a plan. So I came up with a plan on the fly on his show because I didn't want to look like a complete moron. But it was something that was really, really cool. And it made me feel good because it made me focus on something. So that's just a little bit of the background of how I met Jeremy and really, really the reason why I have a ton of respect for Jeremy. I do because he's not going to sit here and steer you the wrong way. And hopefully you're going to notice that in the show. Okay. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to do some questions. I got some questions for Jeremy. And we always ask our questions and you are allowed to say anything on this show too. Okay. That's one of the things I'm not, even though I'm on Whatnot and I know that you sell on Whatnot, if you wanted to say, well, this is terrible, I hate this about Whatnot, you're more than free to say that. Okay.
Yeah, because I refrain from doing that.
What's that?
I said, because I refrain from saying things
yes.
right? I'm being sarcastic
right.
if you can't tell, but yeah.
Yeah, I noticed it. It was just hard for me to hear it a little bit. My first question is my question that I ask all of my guests is that how did you start in reselling and then how did that transition into live selling?
How did I start reselling? That's been part of my blood from day one. My parents, well, not parents, my mom dealt in, was in at flea markets and stuff. So I was exposed to it. My grandfather, both my uncles are licensed auctioneers. So I was just steeped or exposed to it my entire life. I didn't get into reselling as far as a regular business model until let's see here. Yeah, it's probably about 15 years ago. Like as far as like when we established GreenThirteen, a little bit before the official establishment of this company. That's essentially when I got into it and started cranking along on the resale front. But I mean, I was one of those kids selling. I don't even like sports, but I was one of those kids selling basketball cards, packs of basketball cards on the bus. When I was growing up in middle school. So, so exposed to it, influenced by it my entire life.
Wow.
And then like I said, as far as getting on Whatnot, that just came 4 years ago. We just this month in a couple of days, it'll be 4 years on Whatnot. And the big thing that attracted to me is my self-interest in human behavior, behavioral science, behavioral economics, psychology. Certain aspects of psychology when it comes to buying and selling is just a standard interest of mine. And the live selling attributes of Whatnot allowed me to leverage that exponentially in comparison to any other platform. Hence the reason I love it so much. The live selling, it's spectacular. So,
have you ever done any of the other platforms or looked at any of the other platforms?
for live selling?
Yes.
Yeah. We tried a long time ago signing up for one. eBay they put out a message saying like, hey, if you're interested, sign up. We let them know we were interested. We never heard back. We didn't really explore it or try to advance it after that because Whatnot's been working really, really well for us. District, I still have an account on there, but I haven't really had the time to expand to other platforms. No need at this particular point in time, but there's nothing saying it's not going to happen. Like it's like anything else. You heard me say this before on my shows that things change. We're off of other platforms because of the colossal changes that happen. There's nothing stopping changes that are going to influence our business drastically. So I keep an open mind and go check out and do a little research on other platforms in case that happens sooner than I was expecting it to happen. It's pretty much an inevitability that we're going to end up needing to deal with something's going to happen in the future because it's happened in my experience on every other platform where it's like, all right, I got to start looking at some other avenues. But yes and no, a little bit, but nothing that I've decided like I'm going to plant a stake here and start working on advancing any other platforms yet.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, it's a great story. I think I was interviewing somebody a couple of weeks ago, and it was very, very similar. That person started reselling as a kid, doing newspaper routes, doing taking trash to the curb for people. It didn't do anything like that, which is like a reselling type of an aspect. So that's just amazing. I know that this is a question that you have been asked on your show a couple of times, and I wanted to ask the question. You will feel free to answer, or if you'd like to keep that one, that would be fine. But how did you come up with the name of GreenThirteen?
We did. My brother came up with the name GreenThirteen. So, and Shane, my business partner, years ago, wanted a name to utilize for he printed T-shirts, and him and another friend of mine and I wasn't involved in this venture at all. I mean, we're talking like in the late 90s when they did this. He wanted to do like a T-shirt business, and he called it GreenThirteen. So he started an eBay account under that GreenThirteen name, and was trying to sell T-shirts, and then he was selling some stuff for himself under there. So when me and Shane got together to start this business, which pretty much resulted out, I was in the mortgage business, the mortgage collapse of 2008 and stuff. I tried to struggle along for a couple of years and got out, and then me and Shane started doing some business together. Just because of path of least resistance, that was the most established account we had. So we used that eBay account, and that eBay account was GreenThirteen. So we just called the business GreenThirteen. So although people always ask it, like, where'd you come up with it? It's nothing special. It's just like many other names just worked out that way because it was the easiest thing to do. So
that's a really good thing, a really good point too, because you used one that was already established, so that was a great piggyback. But one of the things that we explored on one of our shows that we did last week was the importance of having a name that's recognizable. I know that whenever I come into your show, you'll always say, "Hey Jack, how's everything going?" And it's a catchier name, even though my name is Brian. Brian Treasures doesn't flow as well as Jack's Treasures does. No. I don't know, but I think it just rolls off the tongue a little bit more. And a lot of people call me Jack, which is absolutely fine. I have absolutely no problem with that. But yeah, the importance of a name, and GreenThirteen is a name that you're going to remember it. It's not like that's a name that you're going to say, "Oh, what was that thing that I bought that guy from?" I don't remember. You'll remember GreenThirteen. You know,
Yeah.
that's a very memorable name.
I always suggest to everybody the same thing. You want your names to be short and simple, or if it's going to be a little bit longer, like GreenThirteen is a little bit longer, it's got to be easily, recognizable, like you said, or easy to remember.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
not very
All
complicated.
right. All right. What do you think separates? This is a great question. This is something that I've wanted to ask you for a while too, but I saved it for the podcast. What do you think separates a good reseller, live reseller, from a great live reseller?
What do I think separates between a good to a great?
Yeah.
For live selling,
Yeah.
to me, it would be the people that comprehend making their environment for their sales environment as easy for the buyers. An example, like you always hear me, like I want to constantly sell stuff. One of the
Mhm.
reasons I'm exploring free shipping, all those type of things, those are the things that make it easy for your buyers. Because like live selling right now, and I don't know if other platforms are like this on Whatnot, the shipping's kind of confusing for the sellers and the buyers. So obviously we
Mhm.
as sellers have the shipping down, but the buyers get confused jumping from one sale to the next. So that the sellers that understand and grasp these concepts of making those principles simple is what's going to help you elevate the way you sell. Um, the people that also learn the simple fact that you need to control your sale. Don't let the crowd control. Let them be involved, but not control. The
Okay.
people that grasp these concepts are the ones that are really elevating. Getting to that next level of selling. The people that are letting the crowd kind of control what's going on. It just slows them down and keeps them from getting to the next level of sales. So to me, that's the first thing I recognize in people on a constant basis that are up there on the topper ends of sales. And to me, let me just clarify. You asked me that question. People might define that differently. So my definition
Mhm.
of good to great is always going to be the numbers, the money. I'm always looking for profit. I know it's a social environment, which helps a lot with helping you to gain higher profits.
Mhm.
But and that's another attribute I would say the people that understand how to leverage the social aspects to help increase their sales on live selling is another element that helps people go from mid tier to really to a higher tier. And again, my definition of that is sales and profit. Well, I can't tell what they're profiting, but the best metric I can utilize is, how many sales are they making and what kind of numbers are they getting out of their items. So,
Yeah. That is something that you can look at on Whatnot. I actually find that fascinating that I can go into somebody else's show and I could click over to the sold section and I could see how much they've sold. And it also has the prices that those items were selling for, which I don't know if I necessarily like it or dislike it. For me personally, when somebody comes into my shows and they're looking, but I know when I go to some person's show and I says, "Oh, they've been on for, let's say they've been on for an hour or so," and I look and they sold 3 items or 6 items, and then I'm like, I don't know where the disconnect is. Is it the items? Is it the person? The prices, or what?
I would have no idea without observing, but there is a
Yeah.
perfect example. Like, in my opinion, I don't
Mhm.
think anyone goes and looks at my item sold or anything like that because my goal is to keep people engaged constantly.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
saying, like, if I could keep my sale going, that's what they're interested in. I understand you're another seller. I'm talking more from the buyer perspective. Other sellers are
Yeah. I
curious
gotcha.
about how I operate. You're raising your hand like you do it, but
Yeah.
I'm talking in general as a percentage of people. I don't. If I have stuff on the screen and I'm running constantly, and I'm running stuff that's of interest, they're not going to go wander off and wonder how many items I sold. They're going to be too engaged and interested in what I'm going on. That's my goal, is to keep them focused and interested on the items in front of them and what I'm selling. So
You see, there you go, right there. I mean, the difference between me, who I consider to be a good seller, and Jeremy, who I consider to be a great seller, is the fact that I look at all of those other things. He engages, and he's got this ingrained in me. It's called ABS, always be selling. and it's something that I have now taken to mine. He did say one thing. He said, whenever I get a new buyer, everybody does something for a new buyer. Mine was long because I had to explain it. And Jeremy said, put it in your show notes or shorten it, but always have something up on the screen selling. And he also will tell you to always have something that people can see that it may be coming up, like in the background. Now I have the banner in the background right now, but I have all of these items on the side over here, and I have a table that I swing over, and I have all my items on the table, and people could see the items on the table so that they know that, hey, these are things that are going to be sold. So there's a lot of things that you can learn just by listening and observing.
Yeah. What you're referring to there is, I'm sure, what I refer to as visual real estate on live selling.
Mm-hmm.
Your visual real estate is worth its weight in gold. And the more you can put in there, the more beneficial it's going to be for you. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, anybody that's watching this, visual real estate's the space that you can see without chat being involved and any other things around the camera. But the more you can cram into there,
see if I can
effectively
show an example. Here we go.
You
There's an
want
example.
to be able to see a lot of stuff in the background for obvious reasons. The more you have available for people to see, the more they're going to be interested in sticking around, the more people are going to come in and stay in your chat while you're selling. It's just the most beneficial elements that you can utilize. And that's an element that anybody, whether you're new, mid-tier, top-tier seller, that's an element that if you're not aggressively utilizing that, it'll always improve your numbers. Whether that be dollar numbers or room count numbers, it's going to do better for you on all fronts.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great point that he made right there, guys. Next question. What do you think most people get wrong about live reselling as a buyer and or a seller?
I would say that to really make it the simplest without going into a lot of like dealing with loss leaders and all that kind of stuff would be what I talked about earlier. I think too many people let the chat control. There's too many sellers that come in and they're trying to be people pleasers. You got to take charge. You got to run your show. People will respect you for that if you handle it appropriately. But that's one of the biggest problems that I see when I'm watching people, when I have the opportunity to, when they're newer. They're always constantly asking people what they want, and trying to negotiate deals and stuff. You don't do that. You take charge. You run your stuff. You know your prices. You just set it up there and run it. If somebody asks for a request and you're not doing requests, just tell them. It's that simple. Like, hey, we're not doing requests. It's, we're sorting live here. If you do requests, just tell them politely. Don't worry, I'll get to it. If I miss it, ask again and keep rolling your business. But very frequently, I see people getting caught up in the chat, what they're asking them to do and telling them they want. And they're trying to please them. Slows down their chat, causes problems. People get disinterested and leave because you're focusing so much on one person. Everybody wants attention, right? So if you focus too much on one person, everybody else is out, they're done. They're like, okay, you're spending a bunch of time trying to sell a $5 item to one person that's asking 1,000 questions. That's the stuff that I see on a regular basis from especially newer people. And they're building pretty much a shaky foundation with their beginnings doing that. If you're going to get the people that want to control and kind of manipulate the situation for their own pricing. I mean, the reason they're doing that very frequently is to get better deals for themselves. So, definitely, run your show, let them be involved, but don't let them control. I think that's, on the simplest plane of perspective that I've noticed is a colossal mistake that new people make. And even some people that are seasoned, they kind of make that mistake.
I know for me, it is an issue for me. One of the things that for me is that when I see somebody come into the room that is a supporter of me, but not necessarily a buyer. Okay. Like let's say Paul, for instance, the Philly Flipper, when he comes into the room, I immediately want to give him that shout out. It says, oh, Paul is in the room. And but I feel bad because my room count is definitely lower than Jeremy's room count. But even with my room count at being at the 20 to 30 range, my sales are very good because I have some very good buyers that come into the room, and you really only need a few buyers to be in a room to have a successful show. But I feel like if I don't recognize everybody that comes into the room, it's harder for me. And it's like, if you have a room size and there's 6 people in that room, you might want to say, hey, I got these 6 people. Let's say hey to each one of the 6 people. It might create a connection. But for you, your shows are usually anywhere between 60 to 140 people in the rooms. Your normal shows is what I've seen. And so it would be really difficult to recognize all of those, anybody that comes into the room or everybody.
When I'm running my personal room count is right now, I think it's running 150 to just shy. I hit that 200 mark and stuff like that. But I know when I have other people running, it gets a little lower. My suggestion to you, what you're talking about, no matter what your room size is, whether it's that or not, I still like when I do my chat show, I'm not going to name drop any of the people, but there's some bigger names that come into my room.
Oh, feel free to name drop. I do it all the time.
What's that?
Feel free to name drop. I do it all the time.
No, I'm just there. We're talking people that stream with, 600, 800,000 room counts. They come in and you treat them the same way. You say, hi, thanks for stopping in. Cause I recognize, just like I say to you, when you stop in, I say, I tell you hi. If I see your name pop up, I do the same thing with them. And, I think that's the appropriate way to handle it because like I said earlier, people like attention. So you give everybody equal attention and it makes them comfortable. It's the way I view it. And I think that's what really helps people. Everyone appreciates that when you can.
I think so. I think people like to hear their name on a live platform. Excuse me. That's where they're going to hear it. They're not going to hear it on eBay. Okay. No. On eBay, it's a static selling. It's there. You can do auctions. You can do auctions on eBay, but you don't have that interaction within the chat, which you talked about. So that was a great answer, by the way. I do appreciate that. That was something that a lot of people need to hear, those types of things right there. Can you walk us through how you prep a routine before you do one of your shows?
How do I prep it? Well,
yeah, like what is your routine before you doing a show? I know
here's the deal. My routine is very limited. You've heard me a million times my top-down approach to whatnot. I don't do lengthy listings. I don't list items. I don't use the buy it now. I don't use the marketplace. All my stuff is sorting live, so I don't have to spend the time to do all that. I don't have to spend the time to preload anything. My prep is literally getting if I'm doing a jewelry show, even that, if you come to my jewelry shows, all I have to do is figure out which area on one of my shelves that I want to pull from, and I let the crowd choose what I'm going to pull and pick to sell that day. So I don't even have to prep my items. They're literally, I buy this stuff in bulk, I put it on the shelves, and I let the room decide. So there's very, very little prep in my system of doing business, and that's from that entire philosophy of live selling. Largest advantage of not spending all that time that is not necessary in order to do the volume that I look to do. Because I'll always take that but that bet with anybody that I can I'll out volume anybody that knowledge base sells as far as profits go. And that's how I do it, because I have a value on my personal time. And since I have a value on my personal time, I cut out all that time, the sourcing time, the research time, the listing time, all that, which allows me to buy at higher prices and sell it lower on here in a volume manner, which leads me to what incorporates all that, how it all comes back to your original question. I don't have to prep. Like, my prep is literally, I set up shows in batches of 10 at a time. So I go on 2 minutes early. I make sure my phone's charged and ready to go. I have one listing for my items with quantity in it, with one weight on it, like all that. And I just jump in and, get ready to rock and roll right out of the gate. So it takes me, I show up here, let's say I have an 8 o'clock in the morning show ready to rock and roll. I'll come in at 7:30 and take care of other business stuff I got to take care of, check messages and things of those nature. So about 10 minutes before the show, I'll make sure everything's, just double check everything. Like my lots are in there, and I had printed lot numbers and all that kind of stuff because I use little lot number tags. And then I have employees that take care of some of that stuff now. But so I have very little to no prep.
Right. See, now that's a way to do it right there. He said something that is very important to me. I think I have a little bit of age on Jeremy, and I just turned 60 this year. And it is actually one of the things I started my retirement from teaching. I get a little bit of a retirement or some money from the VA. And it's one of those things of my time is now more valuable to me than it was when I was younger. So what I want to buy my time back so that I can go out and enjoy the things that I like to do or that I want to do right now while I'm still at the age where I can still do that. So valuing your time is super, super important. And I think a lot of sellers on the app do not take that into account.
No. And that is your largest mistake. That is some of the biggest mistakes you could ever make. If you're, again, I'm talking from a business, not from a entertainment standpoint. Like if somebody's doing this because it's, entertaining to them, like when I do my Sunday show, I do that because I enjoy it. So I don't factor that into my evaluated time that I put towards whatnot, because I'm doing that because I get joy out of it and I enjoy doing it. But one of the biggest mistakes people do, two things, was the first thing you talked about is not have some type of goals and plans put into place. And when I say plans, you don't need to be detailed. Some people are crazy detailed. I'm just talking about, that's why I use the word goal, at least a general idea of a direction you want to go. But I always say, don't make it too specific, because you need to leave yourself some wiggle room to move around and change as much as possible when the need arises. But that, not having a plan, and then not evaluating a value, what you would consider a value for your time. So, and if you don't do that, you're basically, making yourself worthless, and nobody wants to be worth, you know what I mean? So
yes, very much so, very much so. It's a hard level to learn, though. I mean, I'm 60 years old, and it took me a while to learn that part of it. And I had an influencer on that. My uncle owned his own business. At one time, he was one of the larger home builders in the Atlanta metro area. And he was working, almost 12-hour days, and he didn't want to do that. So he scaled it back and scaled it back. And I was talking to him one day. He had since passed away. And he was telling me that if somebody comes and asks him to do a job, he had a front loader, so he would clear out lots. He was a grader. They would say, well, how much is your time worth? And he says, well, just talking to me is $60 an hour. Just talking to me. If you want me on my machine, now you're talking about $300 an hour.
Yeah.
And when he did that to me, it made me feel very, very different, because I was in a salary-based job as a teacher. I was a teacher 24/7. This is how much money I was making. And you were expected to work a lot. But now I'm starting to value my time more. And so great point. I appreciate that.
Salary.
And by the way, go ahead.
I was just going to say, people that come from the salary background, it's hard to do that, because to switch over to the time value, because of that exact reason. Sometimes they don't want to think about how much time they're putting in and getting that salary. And then other times they're happy with it. And it's always a influx, especially, I would say, teachers in the education system, because you're probably sometimes doing tons of work at home and,
always
tons of additional time. Always. So I could see how that could be problematic for a lot of people. But regardless of whether it's problematic or not, some people need to work harder at it. And in my opinion, it's a must to be, to reach any type of level of good level of success.
Which is another reason why I thank Jeremy before for coming on to the show, because I know his time is very, very valuable to him and to me, mine also. How do you build and maintain trust with your audience?
It's easy. It's being organic about everything. Like, I sell stuff, I live sort, and people know it because, let me go back a little bit. I'm, like I said before, I'm a big fan of human behavior and behavioral science. I know people's subconscious, or even consciously, can pick up when someone's trying to fake anything or not be genuine. Okay.
Hmm.
People always love genuine. If you're genuine about what you do and you're honest about what you do, it may sound simple, but it's true. And then, of course, trying to provide the best customer service you can on the back end is also a big thing. But it's not hard when people, for people to trust you when you have no problem. And how many times that I done this where I sell items for dollars and it turns into their items are worth hundreds or thousands of dollars. Like, I give you an example. Someone came in and told me how they bought, a pile of little, knickknacks and stuff that was little jewelry pieces.
Yeah.
They bought it, they paid $70 for it, and there was $1,000 worth of gold in there. I could care
I
less.
was in your room
I
when
was
you said
extremely
it
happy,
too.
and it happens a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, people can't, trust. It's hard for someone to not trust you when you're honest like that. When you
Right.
make people realize, as long as I'm making money, they're making money, and the person I'm buying, everyone's making money, everyone's happy. I'm getting what I need, they get what they want, and the person I'm buying from is happy. You can't not be trusted. I guess hard to not have people trust you when you decide to go about your business that way. I mean, if you start trying to fudge things, pretend, get upset, get irritated and angry about situations like that, people start getting a little worried. It starts, they start getting, standoffish and not going to want to be around for it. So
Yeah.
I think that's really ultimately, in my opinion, what's going to give people the ultimate trust in you.
And
Just being genuine and honest.
I was in a show and the people were running an item and they were starting the item off at $1. And I said, okay, that's good because I have been in Jeremy's chat where he has talked about that. That's one of the big goals that people should have, starting these at $1 and having the item go up from that point right there. But the approach that they took at this was they were going to be very upset if the item didn't go for $50. And as a buyer, now I am a reseller, obviously, but as a buyer, me sitting in the room saying, well, if that's your number, then why didn't you start it at $50? Because my level of trust dropped at that point, that they're not trying to make the deal as much and build that trust with the audience as much as they are trying to get as milk every dollar or penny or whatever they can get out of that item. I don't know per se, but it was just one of those instances where it left a sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah,
From
well, and it would. Your question you asked earlier about like what separates the, middle level to the higher level, stuff like that. The people that can just,
Yeah,
run stuff for $1, not worry about, whether it's sold for half of what you're looking to get for it or not. It doesn't matter. You just keep on going and going and going and going. If you didn't
yeah,
make it
yeah,
on that one, you'll make it on the next 3 or 4 items. And if you're not making what you want the way you're running it, it's time to reevaluate your business model. It's that simple. So,
yep, yep. Which Jeremy has taught me to do that too. All right, what's been the biggest challenge that you've had during a live sale, and how did you handle it?
the biggest challenge was probably, I've gotten pretty good at dealing with problems on the spot when they come in, since I've been on, selling for 4 years. So we kind of graduated up through with all the like different type of trolling and stuff like that. So I would say that's probably the bigger challenges that I've ever had with live selling, where trolls come in and
Mhm.
cause problems. There was a situation one time I was just talking about it earlier. There was a time that I lost my cool and just ended the show. Like that was, I was working a ton. I was really, I was, burnout. This is a situation where you got to check yourself, and burnout is definitely a real thing, because I let it get to me. Somebody came in and was doing they were bidding. They were doing what I call the jump bids, where they bid real high, hoping to catch the next person at a swipe. I just was like, I'm not dealing with this, and shut the show down. But it's that stuff that were my biggest challenges. And the biggest challenge of all those was when I got what I call a hate raid, where a group of some group that was on Whatnot, they literally their goal was to get a bunch of rabble rousing people that in like a room of 100 people, and then they raid you, and they were saying super inappropriate stuff to my staff. You got to realize I have staff that's working for me.
Yeah.
They were, they were just causing as many problems as they possibly could. So you're talking 100 people coming in. That sole purpose was to cause problems. That was probably the biggest and most complicated. Now, I had the luxury where other people wouldn't. I was on long enough to know who I could trust and who I couldn't, and I had plenty of mods. So I was modding additional people. I think by the time it was done, we literally had booted over 30 people.
Wow.
Out of that show. And now, eventually, it settled down after, we were getting rid of everybody, and they realized we had it under control. But that was probably the biggest problem. And then to follow that, the other problems that are still an ongoing issue are the trolling situations. Now, I will say on that note too, luckily I found out the other day that when people are troll bidding, if anybody doesn't know what that is, when somebody just bids and keeps bidding against themselves to stall out the sale, knowing that once they get to a certain level, their credit card's not going to go through, but they cause chaos in your show by stalling your show out. I found out that you can boot people before it even gets there. So if you're familiar with selling and you think that's going on, you can kick the person out. And luckily I had a situation where one person got their, they got their dues because their payment went through. They didn't reach the threshold where it needed to in order for their credit card to not clear. So when I booted them, they ended up paying $300 and some for a $20 costume ring at best. It was probably like a $5 ring. But yeah,
I imagine
that's how I handled those situations. I was, it's frustrating, but that's, the biggest problem. And still for me, that's my biggest irritation, because I am so focused on trying to keep my show going, and I'm very diligent about, trying to get back on track if things start going off. And when they come in and start inorganically, I call it an inorganic environment, where they come in and just cause, intentional chaos. That bothers me the most out of anything.
Yeah. It sounds like a cancellation request was probably submitted, and I would imagine 100%. Denied.
Yeah. They submitted a cancellation request. They thought that, you could tell the way they worded the cancellation, they thought it was getting sent over directly to Whatnot. But I, obviously didn't approve it. Now, unlike you, I am responsible for my own customer service now and refunds on Whatnot. You are too? Okay. Yep. So they tried to return it again, thinking they were talking to Whatnot. And of course I denied it and flat out told, in the response that this was a result of a troll bid. The answer is 100% no. you're so.
I had a very similar story with that. I was on Paul's Ray Train, as a matter of fact, on Sundays. He calls it Prime Time Spotlight. And I held up a box, and it was an empty box for a video game console system, but it was a limited edition one. Sells on eBay for about $40, right? I started off at $1 because my shows, I start off at $1 when I'm on that train. And the bidding got up to the $40 mark. Now, I did have it pre-listed because of the Ray Train and the format that I run on my shows. I had it pre-listed. And the very first word in the description and then in the title was empty. That was the first word. And then the last two words were no console. And when Tracy and I, my wife Tracy and I, watched the video receipt, we had said that it was an empty box 10 times in the auction. It was like a 10-second auction. He sends in a return request saying that I never said that it was an empty box until he bid. And because it came right straight to me, I was like, I probably would have accepted it because I'm a little bit more forgiving if he would have said, look, I just popped in the room. I didn't notice it was an empty box, and I bid really quick because it was for a PlayStation 5 and I thought I was going to get a great deal. I might have said at that time going, yeah, okay, no problem. I can resell it because I have other buyers that I know would buy it. But he accused me. And at that point I said, oh, hell no. Sorry. You're not getting one. And I am a lot more lenient with that. Okay. I got a couple more questions. I want to go a little bit faster. How did you develop your philosophy of selling?
Which philosophy? But the way,
where do you get your thought processes on approaching live selling via, you've talked little bit about that, but you can get more specific at this point.
The philosophies build up as you go through things. Okay. And I'm always explaining that I read, as you know, behavioral economics, behavioral science, psychology of why people buy, all that kind of stuff is information that I read. And then when I am exposed to a platform, that I then look, okay, how can I implement these aspects into this platform? And then as the platform progresses, you find new opportunities. I'm always testing. So my philosophy is just, try new things and try different things within the confines of the knowledge that I have with those type of things, with the psychological behavioral principles behind selling, buying and selling. So I don't think there's any real way, other than that, there's nothing that I'm have written down in stone or any here's my philosophy and how I got here. It's always a work in progress. It's always changing. We're always trying different things, and sometimes I'll have a theory or a thought and I'll try and it doesn't work, and sometimes it's not because my theory's wrong, it's because the way I approached it was wrong, or the platform is not the same as other platforms and I got to go digging. And a perfect example of that is something like when I did the first free shipping study. I came to realize that in order to get free shipping benefits, it's way more of an investment in order to capitalize on it on the platform, on whatnot, as opposed to capitalizing on those type of things on static listing platforms like eBay or Amazon. So, but there's no structured philosophy there, other than the most structure I'd get is it's always in flux. It's always changing. I'm always adapting and trying different things. So
that is awesome right there. I'm waiting for the book. I'm waiting for the Jermey book on reselling. That'll be my first purchase that won't be my first purchase because I've actually bought from Jermey before, but that would be, I will be his first buy. That will be.
Well, I'll tell you this. When I get it, when I'm in the beginning stage of getting the YouTube channel up and rolling, and anything that would be in a book is just going to be available for you to view, and watch, through the YouTube channel. So
I will let you guys know this right now. I am the one that is pushing that every time I come into his shows. I'm like, do you have the YouTube setup? Do you have the YouTube setup? Do you have the YouTube setup? And he very gracious, saying, it's in the works. It's in the works, Jack. Yeah. It's in the works, Jack. And I'm like, yep. Because the thing about it is that since he does his shows at 8:00 in the morning, I like to watch them all. And now the rewatch feature is not on Whatnot anymore. So in order for me to do that, I have to see it on YouTube. So I stream all my shows on YouTube. I've always done that, though, because I'm trying to build my YouTube channel. So, and I knew that he was doing that. And that was another reason why I wanted him on the podcast, so that there will be links, by the way. I'm going to have a link down to his Whatnot shows. And as soon as he gives me a link for his YouTube channel, I will update that in the description down below. So you guys are going to be able to get some of this great knowledge that I'm getting right now. And I'm just doing all of the interviews. Okay. So it's just amazing, but I'm going to be sharing all of that with you guys. All right. Last question, and then we're going to move on. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to sell, who wants to start live reselling today?
What advice would I give?
Yeah.
That's easy. Your first show is going to be a disaster. Just like everybody. Don't worry about it, because that's always the biggest concern of everybody. Use it as a learning opportunity. Your first couple of shows are going to be. And then your second, you already know what it is. It's ABS. I mean, it's always be selling.
I do.
That is the constant that will always be. What I mean by that is you run as often as you can for as long as you can, and you sell as many items as you can. It's that simple. Like, that is your best exposure. People are always trying to get followers. You don't want followers, you want buyers. And how you get buyers is by selling stuff or making it available to people to buy. Offer somebody a sale. That is how you're going to grow. And foundationally, that's what you want to do. It may seem slower than other people sometimes, but I can guarantee you the people that try to shortcut it are paying for it later. They're suffering later. You will get compounded benefits from building your business, live selling business, starting it out right. And that's go after buyers. And I'll tell you this too. What you focus on is what improves. You want your sales numbers and profits to go up. You focus on that. And the way to focus on that is to focus on buyers. So don't worry about followers. Don't worry about, anything other than buyers. That's what you're after ultimately.
Right.
So that's what generates sales. And the only way you can generate sales, I'll repeat it again, ABS, always be selling. That's simple.
Guys, he's saying a lot of this, and I've heard all of this before, but I'm presenting it all to you guys and on the podcast so that you can all know this. So that's why he says, this, and I do.
Yeah.
I do, because I watch all of his shows that I possibly can get into. All right, we're going to do something called the pros and cons of reselling. We've actually talked a lot about them. What I'm going to do is we're going to talk about some of the cons of reselling. So I'm going to throw out something, and I'm going to let Jeremy give you his take on the con on this one. Okay, we're only going to do one because we're getting short on time, because I am watching the time up there. So this is a big con of it. All right. And also for some people, they consider it to be a pro, but I'm going to let Jeremy explain to it. And that is giveaways.
You want me to go into my reasons why giveaways are a con as opposed to a pro?
Yes, I want it as a con. I mean, you've got me to not do them unless I have to do them for a raid train, or I'm doing them for a very specific reason. But in order to get followers is not my reason whatsoever.
Yeah, the biggie is just what we were just talking about. Like giveaways first, they cost you money in one way, shape, or form, especially when you're new. Yes, there's some people that do giveaways that are sponsored giveaways and stuff like that, but it's still taking resources out of your time. It is distracting to your sale. Okay, when you're running a live sale and you're doing giveaways, it's just it creates a distraction. You got to shout out whoever won the giveaway. You also, have people asking what the giveaway is. Sometimes it's just stuff that I don't want. All those fractional distractions I want out of my sales as much as possible. The giveaways do nothing but give you followers. Okay, they don't give you buyers. Okay, the people will talk about like, oh, I got a giveaway, I'll do it, but we're talking about the rule. Okay, not the exception. I don't build my business on exceptions. I build it on the general rule of how people operate. Giveaways also do not activate the role reciprocation in people's brains like people think. When someone gets a giveaway, what activates in your brain is the loss prevention part of your brain activates actually.
Mm-hmm.
And basically nothing lost, nothing gained. Literally, nothing lost on their part, nothing gained on your part is the way I translate that. And it's true.
Right.
Get very little out of the giveaways. You're better off taking those financial resources that you put towards offering giveaways and do other things. One of the biggest things I always suggest is doing a loss leader. You don't know what a loss leader is? It's just buying something you're expecting to take a loss on. And on whatnot, that may not even be the case. You just put it up and sell something for $1. The other aspect is instead of doing giveaways, run stuff for $1. Multiple things are going to happen. Somebody gets a giveaway. You don't even know if they want the item they bought or that they won, I should say. When you instead decide to do dollar starts on stuff that's worth something decent, which if you're going to do giveaways and have them effective at all, you want it to be a decent item. You don't want to give them a piece of garbage anyway or something worthless. So if it's going to be something of any substance, you're losing money on the value of the item. You're losing money on the shipping of the item. You're not getting any reciprocation aspects out of the person that's receiving it. Why not just take that item and start at $1 and let the person get the item and enjoy it? Not to mention the other people that will appreciate and stick around because you offered the ability for them to potentially get a deal. Whether they got a deal or not, they're going to stick around because you're making it a potential for them. So there are so many, we're just touching the tip of the iceberg. We could talk all day about how I'm not into giveaways. And again, you mentioned you're going to put my YouTube thing, and when I get it up and rolling, my first thing is going to be on YouTube is going to be the truths and false, aspects of giveaways on live stream selling, especially on whatnot. And I'll go, it'll probably end up, now that I'm thinking about it, it'll probably end up being like 2 or 3 15-minute videos on that, because there is a lot of misconceptions and misdirection. Even on Whatnot's perspective, I explain this. Whatnot encourages it because it helps them. It doesn't help you. Okay. It helps them with their goals that they're looking for, which is a whole nother topic, whole nother discussion that I will go into on YouTube. We'd be here forever, but the long and short of it, there were so many opportunities for you to capitalize and retain and gain buyers that giveaways are not giving you. Okay. And primarily my suggestion to anybody that wants their first alternative and try this is, instead of doing the giveaways, take those items and run them as a dollar start, as a thank you to your people. Because the other thing that people do on Whatnot is they try to run buyer giveaways, and then they get upset because the buyers didn't, someone did a form fill, and they got it.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. Well, you don't have to worry about that. Don't run giveaways. Run things for $1 and give everybody that appreciates you for who you are and what you sell to get something for a good deal. And they'll love you for it 10 times over. They'll stick with you. You're turning them into customers for life, as opposed to a one-time. You're basically like spamming. You're trying to spam get people. The broad, like, your return on that's going to be like 0.5% if you're lucky, of somebody sticking around. You get somebody a good deal, they're coming back, and they're coming back multiple times. And if they get another good deal, they get 2 or 3 good deals from you, they're customers for life. They're hooked, line, and sinker. They're your customer, and they're coming back and showing you appreciation over and over again. And that's not accomplished with giveaways. It's just doesn't happen.
I'll probably send you that clip right there, Jeremy, and that could be your first video. I knew he was passionate about that, guy, so I knew that question was going to come there. Now comes the pro. We'll go to the pro, and he's going to like the pro too, and that is volume selling.
The pro of volume selling, there is. You heard me say this earlier in our conversation here. I would always take the Pepsi Cola challenge against somebody that is, doing the slow roll sell, doing the knowledge-based selling. And when I say knowledge-based, I'm someone that sits there and talks about and explains everything about an item, takes forever to sell it. Volume selling always beats out. And it's because the best way I can explain this, somebody will sit there and try to sell an item to make $50. And at the time they're doing this, I could sell 6 to 10 items with a $10 profit. Okay. Even after expenses. It's always going to win. And the other aspect is, if you're volume selling, which is what's beautiful about this platform, if I go to other platforms, okay, that's not live selling, if I want to list a $5 or $6 item, it takes the same amount of time to do that as it does to sell a $50 or $60 to list that. So your overhead cost as a percentage is astronomical for those lower end items. On here, it's not, because you're 10, 15, 20 seconds, you're rolling you can roll $5, $6, $8, $10 items and get a large payout at the end of the day on this platform utilizing volume sales. So it doesn't matter whether you're selling $5 and $10 items or $500,000 items. If you can get it in a volume roll, that's always the ultimate goal.
I got a great question on that one. How many times have you run a show, and let's say that you run 100 items? I know that you run more than that, but I'm going to use an easy numbers. You run 100 items in that show as a volume seller. How many items don't sell?
For me?
Yeah. Percentage. We'll just go percentage wise.
I'm right now, I'm at less than 1%, but you got to realize,
yeah, there you go.
I'm doing $1. My clothing shows, let's make it accurate here. My clothing shows is a higher, because we start at $3. I mean, if we did dollar starts on there, sell through plus I do not do reruns on the clothing shows. So there's a lot of stuff that would sell if people were paying attention, because people want to rerun it. So, but ultimately, in the end, I would say I'm still, the core of my business is less than 1% ends up not selling. And then even when it doesn't sell, I put it in a pile and sell it as a pile at the end of the show. Like if I'm selling jewelry and stuff like that. So if you really want to get down to it, as far as items sold, they all get sold unless it's broken or damaged or something. And, then I got to get rid of it. Or if it's something that's too big for me to sell within my system that I like to deal with, then it gets donated. But that's stuff that I didn't even run anyway. But as far as items that are run and ends up getting sold, we're less than 1%. Well,
that should be everybody's goal right there. That to me, there's your difference between a good seller and a great seller. Okay. I've had sellout shows. So I'm not saying that I haven't. And I've had shows where I've come damn close to being sellout shows. But for the majority of my shows right now, I'm probably running maybe about 10% of my items are not selling, which is fine, because
That's
I'm
not
in that
bad. I
growing
mean,
process. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm in that growing process.
Yeah, and you're growing. You're not at the point like obviously me doing dollar starts.
Mhm.
And the other thing, let's make sure I got to say this too. Like even before I did this, but now it's virtually none because I do free shipping on all my small shows, which is a large portion of them now between jewelry, my mini
I've
Monday
noticed.
where I sell small stuff,
Yeah.
it- and I do a ton of jewelry shows, as you know.
Yeah.
Free shipping, $1 free shipping. I mean, who's not bidding? It's got
Right.
to be it's got to be something that's a piece of garbage, in order for somebody to not bid on it at that. So
Yeah. That's all awesome right there. I appreciate all of that. All right, we're gonna do shine the light, and we're gonna go kind of fast on that one because I know Jeremy's is short on time. These are sellers where I'm gonna spotlight a couple of sellers. One of them you're gonna absolutely love. Okay,
mhm.
and that's actually our new seller. Our new seller is named Vanessa, and it's spelled. And there'll be a link down there below to all of these right here. She's I'm sorry. Yeah, she is a new seller. Is she a new seller? Yes. She's got let me make sure I get this right. No. Oh, she's not. Well, we're going to call her a new seller. She's got 3.8 thousand followers. She sold 1.5 thousand items. The reason why we were showcasing her is because I was on a show yesterday and she was rated into. She had 2 people in the room when the show rated into. There were 50 people in the room. The first thing that she did was pull an item out of her bin. Now she had a bin and it was $100 item in the bin. She ran that item for $5 and
Yeah.
gave it somebody a deal. The item sold for 61.
Mhm.
But I can just imagine how many people were in there to stay in that show to say, I want that deal. I want those deals. This is somebody who's at least offering those deals. And that is something that Jeremy has taught me to do. I'm sorry, pointing the wrong way. Jeremy has taught me to do is that I have all of these lounge flies now that literally when I get a raid, depending on the size of my raid, I grab that lounge fly and I say, hey guys, I'm going to give you guys a deal. I'm going to grab a lounge fly that's like, 60, 70, $80. I'm gonna start it off at $1. And so far, every one of them I have made money on.
Yeah.
Every one.
And I will say to that point, anybody that's selling on live sell on whatnot, another attribute of that my irritation with giveaways. You watch room counts, the people that decide to run a giveaway, room count drops like a rock. If you want to keep people in your room longer and or catch potential buyers and future customers, run something for $1.
Yeah.
Start, or that makes sense. If you're running $100 item for $5, it's to me that's kind of the same thing. But either way,
Yeah.
the principle of it is providing a spectacular deal for people and running stuff and catching and keeping the people that then can see how you run your show, what items you're selling, the way you sell it. A giveaway does none of that. A giveaway stalls your show when you decide to run it when somebody raids. It's just so that to me that's very impressive because a lot of newer sellers and stuff continue to jump on that giveaway bandwagon with the raids when you will get way more out of doing something along those lines. So kudos to them for doing that.
I will say she did go to giveaway after that. But the first thing she did, and I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass. The first thing that she did though was that banger giveaway. And Tracy is actually the one who said, spotlight her. And I said, okay.
Yeah. So she did the deal first before the giveaway.
Right.
Yeah, that's your hook. I mean but she didn't need to do the giveaway. Like honestly, she did what she needed in order to keep the people in there. That was the right thing. I mean, it's nothing wrong with doing if you're into doing giveaways, which you guys all heard, I absolutely am not into giveaways.
Our more established seller, our growing seller this week is going to be Lauren Homeschool Mama. I'm not sure exactly what her numbers are. I think she's around the 8,000 followers and somewhere around the 5,000 in sales. She generally sells in kids' books and also clothing and women's contemporary. She is a friend of ours. We've actually met her up in Indiana when I went to Plains to Profit. So if you give her a follow, she's amazing. I don't know if Jeremy's familiar with Homeschool Mama, but our established seller, I know he is familiar with because I see her in his shows when I'm in his shows, and that is Donatella. Also, Donna, she's got 25.8 thousand followers, and the number of the sales is really the biggie. She's at almost 80,000 sales. So she sells everything from crayons to crystal is what she put on her things. And I know you know Donna.
Oh, absolutely. Donna's great. I talk to Donna on a frequent basis. I've gotten to know her through Whatnot. One of the great things about Whatnot. And yeah, you can't go wrong with Donatella. I mean, she's been live selling before Whatnot existed. I mean, she sold on YouTube, live selling on YouTube for years and years and years. So she knows her stuff. She sells differently than me, but not, she still takes advantage of all the appropriate things that you need to be extremely successful on here. And like you said, she sells everything under the sun. She's great. I can't say enough about her. She does things right, but she also has the experience. Like I said, she's been around a lot longer live selling than almost anybody that's on this app and any live selling apps. So
sounds like somebody I'm going to have to get on the show very soon.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
All right, we're going to do what's new, and Jeremy's going to love the what's new parts because he doesn't do any of these things, guys. Whatnot is doing away with gifting, or what's known as blooping, the sound that makes when you do the gifting. I already know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What do you think about that, Jeremy?
Well, I went through a little bit of a perspective with that for people in my last chat show. There's three basic things here and Whatnot that's never going away and never going to be anything you got to worry about. Two of those I don't even use, but they're staying. The marketplace, your bin, and live selling. Okay. The live selling attribute, your auction. Those three are not going anywhere. If you decide to utilize any of the other things for a substantial amount of your business, you're going to end up getting yourself in hot water down the road. When I mean, I call them, features that Whatnot provides: the blooping, the even giveaways, the tips, the money, the wheel, the gambling wheel, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If you decide to rely on that as a substantial portion, you're going to get yourself into trouble. And the bloops going away, I don't utilize any of that. And you got to realize too, always take a large perspective. We talked about, the fact that the company, Whatnot as a whole, is always going to look at it differently than you. If you're not making money, they don't care. If they only care if they're making money, and the resources it takes to do some of these things, if they're not making enough, they're not going to do it. And the gifting was obviously something that everyone was only gifting like $1, $2, $3 items, and the resources it takes to deal with that on Whatnot's end is obviously too much, and they're not making any money. So what you need to be aware of, everybody that's listening, is don't build any part of your business that's going to be reliant on those things. Because if you do, you're in for disappointment, because those are the things that are going to change. Those are the things that are going to shift the most drastically. And the three things that aren't are going to have the least amount of change. Not saying they won't change, but they won't go away. Are those three aspects of Whatnot: the static listing, marketplace, your buy it nows, and live auction selling. And you guys, I don't know, but if you don't know, I do one. I do one of the three. I sell live, and that's it.
The other one does have to do with the bin, and that is that you can now go to when you click on somebody's bin or the buy it now, their show does not go away. It used to go away that only the bin would show up and you couldn't see any of the show. Now you can actually see the show. It makes it a little small and goes into a little corner, but you can actually see the show. And that's something that I actually appreciate. It took me a little bit to see it and say, what the heck's going on here? The show is still there and everything. But that's actually a new thing that they're doing. We do utilize a bin because I'll have something in the bin, and then what I end up doing is when I get that raid, I grab that thing out of the bin. So automatically they're going to know, hey, he's running a $50 item for $1 and
Mhm.
stuff. So
Yeah.
it creates, for me, it creates that part of it. All right. We're going to do a little bit of what's in the future. So we've already talked a little bit about this. So I'm going to like skim over this. Jeremy is going to be doing a YouTube channel. He's saying this, not just me. I'm not making him do this. So we'll have links down there below as soon as I get them. There is absolutely no doubt about that. But the big question is what does the future hold for GreenThirteen?
A lot. No, honestly, we are staffing. Well, as we can staff up, staffing is kind of like a complication we're running into. We're learning, staffing these days is a lot different than it was when we were staffing in the past, and now we have to staff up for our growth. But things are definitely going to be shifting. There's going to be some shifting attributes to what's going on with our clothing sales that we do. And we will be expanding quite a bit more into doing jewelry. And the ultimate goal for us is to be running all day, every day. When I say day, I mean just daytime, and then into the evening. That's my goals for the next year and a half. And then if we get to the point where we need to hire third shift people to start running during the night, if that happens faster, that'll be great. But I'm not going to try to push it too fast. That's when I am that type of person. I was like, I just want to go and try to add all this stuff on. But I've learned, step back, take your time, build it properly. Like I tell everybody else, you want a nice foundation to everything. So, and right now, I have a watch sale going that I was doing. I never thought I'd be into jewelry or watches. And it looks like if I keep being able to source where I'm at, we're going to be having a regularly scheduled watch sale at least once a week. And then who knows if it's anything like the jewelry that used to be once a week. And now we're doing it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times a week. We have jewelry sales. So that is, that's the future. What it will end up being as far as what we sell and how we sell it, that's who knows, because I'm always changing those things up, and you go according to what opportunities you have and what you can source and get your hands on things of that nature. The other goal for me is to, try to find some more pick this old house seasons. If you're not familiar with that, it's where that was our springboard here on Whatnot. That's what threw us really quick. We came on 4 years ago. We did what I called pick this old house. We were the first ones on Whatnot to go into an actual house and sell out of the house. So just imagine Whatnot being as new as it was, new to everybody. It was a new concept. And then I did that. People went absolutely nuts. If you're talking about the good old days when you could literally sell anything, broken, smashed, disgusting, nasty, they bought it all during those days. But that is what I'm going to bring some of those pick this old house, seasons back. I'm literally going to be going to a gentleman that might have one of those situations available for me. However, when we do those now, I'm not going to do them because of my time allotment for it. They are very time intensive, is limited.
Right.
So I'm not going to do them unless they're, pretty outstanding.
Gotcha. Makes
product.
Sense. Makes sense. And now we'll do the turn the table, where I let the guest ask the host a question. So you can fire away, and it could be any type of a question whatsoever.
Oh, that's easy, man. What's your goals for the next 6 months to a year for Whatnot? What do you like? I know you sit down, you come into my shows and listen to what I have to say and all that kind of stuff. Like, what actions do you have lined up that you're actionable items you're looking to do in order to increase your business on Whatnot?
There's my wife and I have 2 main goals that we're trying to do on Whatnot. Well, actually, we have 3. We do 3. The first goal that we have is that we want to do more. How to put it? I want to source at a higher level. In other words, the other day during your show, you were talking about going out and sourcing, and you were saying that you were probably going to be spending anywhere between $12,000 to $18,000. I think my numbers might be around in that area. And I was like,
that's what I spent.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so for Tracy and I, we want to bring more stuff to Whatnot that is going to be better, higher quality, not retail arbitrage, but buying store, because I buy storage units, So we are now looking at storage units that are in the $1,000 to $3,000 range, where I have bought a storage unit for $8,000. Very few and far between. I've gotten a couple of those, but those are the units that we're looking at. We're not looking at the lower bottom scale ones. That's one of our big goals. The second big goal is I want to liquidate. I am looking for somebody to liquidate, and that's one of the main reasons why I listen to you. And it's also one of the main reasons why, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, I always come into your show and I ask two questions, one about YouTube and the other one about resourcing. And so I want to learn that part. And so learning how you're talking when you say, talk their language, talk to, how are they selling? How are they buying? What is the best way for you to talk that language? And also you brought something to my attention, which I completely blew this weekend, where I had an opportunity to make a good buy, but I was unwilling to pull the trigger on it with the way that she was selling. And I did the wrong thing of saying, let me go to the way I want to buy it. And so I ended up with nothing. So right then and there, even though I learn and I try to learn, I still make mistakes. That's the second goal.
So do I. I mean, everybody does. That's
right. And the third one is I do want my wings. I do want to try to get the wings, but I only want it once. I don't want it after that, because that's just, I want my time back. And I know for me, that time is there. I've run shows where I've been on for 20 minutes and have sold just under $1,500. One of my big ones is to hit 2,000 in the 20 minutes. Of course, I'm on a Ray train at that point with Paul the Philly Flipper. So I'm getting a lot of support coming in from that way. And I want to transition that into running my own show. And me and you had talked about this on your show also, is that I was running dollar auctions on one of my shows, but it was so difficult for me to get through them because I saw a diminishing return that I had to stop doing it because, and I was still making money, but the diminishing return and then my time into each one of those was affected by that. So that I can say, I want to go back to my dollar shows, make it a weekly show. Right now, it's only going to be monthly because I want my time and then to be honest with that. So I hope I answered that question well.
Yeah. You answered it. My other question, I don't know how many questions I have here for you, but
you can ask another question. I don't mind. If you have the time. I know we're running on an hour 20.
This is my last question. If you're not going to try to keep it, why are you going after your wings in the first place?
I think it's just one of those prestigious things. I guess it's ego, maybe. Yeah, I guess it would probably be just ego. I don't even know if I'm going to, if we're going to try it or not, because Tracy and I have talked about it, but we've also talked about doing other things. I do have accounts on District also, and we've run a couple of shows on District just to say, hey, we have that. And I know you also do sell on eBay still.
A little bit. We have some people that do some listings on eBay, not a whole heck of a lot anymore.
Yeah. I went from about 8,000 listings on eBay to now I'm under 160 something. So I just have some of that, but it's probably just an ego thing. So it might go away. It might be one of those things that I just say, well, I might just not do that, because you could still do it without doing, because I know one of yours big ones is going to be doing the listing on, having to take that time to do the listing.
You can, you do, but the generic picture takes valuable real estate, visual real estate. It pushes your listings up. But my suggestion to you, I'm going to give it to you, whether you like it or not, is
I'll edit it. No, I'm just kidding. It was a joke.
Don't let ego get in the way of profit, man. And like I told you, whatever you focus on is what's going to be, you're going to succeed at. If you focus on getting wings, you're going to get your wings. But ultimately, what did that do for you? That's why I asked it, because you said you're only going for it once. Why don't you instead change your focus on the most important thing out of those wings? Is the what is it, 50K you have to reach or something like that? They have like a monetary value. That's the great part of the wing asset. All the rest of it's nothing, in my opinion. The other part with the customer service is irritating, in my opinion, that they basically downgraded their customer service to make that seem like it's an upgrade when it's not. It's just they had standard, they lowered the standards for everybody else. So
Right.
I'm not going to go after something like I'll deal with what's there. It's not like it's terrible. Plus, you're in control just like me. And so will everybody else in the future. They're going to be dealing with their own personal customer service anyway. So you're not going to be needing to directly contact them for as many things anyway, for how to deal with it. So all those attributes are not, as you know, are not important to me. And I'm not telling you this for it to not be important to you, but if it's only something you're really going to put effort towards once, you might as well just decide what the best attribute out of all of that is for you and yourself business wise, and just put your effort towards that and keep it consistent. And of course, I'm always going to tell you, because my goal is profit, and profit comes from sales, would be that money number, the $50,000, amount. I don't even know what the timeline is. Is it a month? Is it 3 months? You need to hit 15,000?
It's 3 months. It's 3 months.
So, my suggestion,
you would have it easily. I already know
that. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that's an admirable goal. That's what you want to go after. And here's the other thing you got to understand from a psychological principle, you're going to clump all those together because you just anchored all those things to that, to getting your wings. And you've already anchored your wings to only wanting it once.
Yeah. I said, Jeremy,
you're going to work hard and try to get to that. And then you're going to go backwards. You might as well just focus on the most important thing and stick with it and work on it the whole way.
I appreciate that a lot. Guys, I want to thank Jeremy again for coming in and giving me some of his valuable time. Okay. I definitely do appreciate it. If I can arrange it with Jeremy, I would love to have him on a guest again, so we could talk and hit some more of these items. But look for him on Whatnot. It is GreenThirteen. He is on Whatnot right now, and he is amazing. Check out his talk shows. It's on Sundays at 8:00. And are you doing them at night also, or in the evening?
The pop-up. I do them in the evening as a pop-up. I kind of like that because my chat show, it's 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's early, but that's my most established one. So right now, we're pushing close to 200 people pretty frequently on that chat show. And it's hard, you know what I mean? Like,
without
I don't get
a giveaway.
I don't do giveaway.
A giveaway.
Yeah, let's. So. I'm going to use my term. I don't guff. I don't gibby puff, but it's gibby puff, and I do not puff my rooms up with giveaways. All my room counts that I'm talking about are pure organic. People come in because they want to be there, not because they're looking for a handout or a freebie. So, but yes, I do the chat show and realize these people, like you were pointing out there, without doing giveaways, they're there because they want to be there and they want to ask questions. So I started doing an evening one from time to time, which it still gets, sometimes it'll hang around 50, which is nice. I like that because then I can really be a little more, closer to one-on-one with the people that are asking the questions. So yeah, if anybody's, interested, just keep your eye out. I don't put those up for bookmarking. I don't schedule those ahead of time. They're just, if I have the time on a Sunday evening and I don't feel like watching some, brain rot TV show or something like that, I'll jump on Whatnot and do a quick, it's not even quick, I'll do it for an hour.
I have to say, I actually love this man right here because he is teaching me at 60 years old how to do this business and keep this business going. And I appreciate that, guys. Thank you, Jeremy, for coming on. He's also going to be doing a YouTube. I'm going to link it down there below. As soon as he gives it to me, that's going to be down there for low because I wanted to see him. I guarantee you he's going to get monetized way before I do. And I've been doing this for 5 years. Also, guys, if you guys know, we're going to be a link down there below to Stop Soldier Suicide. If you can help out with Stop Soldier Suicide, over 20 soldiers a day, former soldiers and veterans, are committing suicide per day. The link will be down there below. All you got to do is hit that link, give them a little bit of whatever that you can to help out for soldier suicide is appreciative, and we really do. Jeremy, I'm going to give you the last word, and then I'm going to end the recording. You have it, my friend.
I don't have any last word. Actually, I do. You know what it is. ABS, man. Always be selling, everybody. It's the fastest path to success on any live selling platform. You have a great day, man.